And there were some more questions, but I'm sure you'll stick around, so they'll be able to have some more conversations about that later on. Okay, continuing with human-centered innovation. Our next guests transform support for neurodiverse individuals and their families. Rinat Hitelman and is the co-founder of Wide Therapy, a patented digital intervention helping neurodiverse children and adults build independence through evidence-based, video-based rehearsal. Joining her, is Dr. Stephen Merahn, a physician executive designing multi-stakeholder health and human services systems for populations with complex developmental and behavioral needs, and an advocate for neurodiversity. Please, stage is yours.
Thanks.
Hello? Oh.
There we go. Go ahead first.
So hi everyone, welcome. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Rinat Hitelman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wide Therapy. And Wide is digital therapeutics for neurodiverse individuals where they see themselves overcome challenges they're facing in real life. And by seeing themselves, they're able to acquire essential life skills for their independence.
And I'm Stephen Merahn. I'm a pediatrician by training. I'm on the autism subcommittee for the American Academy of Pediatrics. And I've been an advisor to Wide. I think it's an exciting platform, but we're not here to talk about Wide so much. We're here to talk about technology-enabled care, because this is not about our platform specifically. It's about a way of approaching the needs of neurodiverse individuals for therapeutic interventions. I also want to acknowledge, just before we get started, that there are some clear differences in the approach to naming autism. There's both person-first and identity-first approaches. I want to acknowledge both. We toggle between the two of them. Neither of us are autistic, so we try to balance both sides. Just want to acknowledge that as we're getting started today. So I don't want to go through the details of the diagnostic categories that are associated with autism. We put it up there as an anchor, but I think it's far more important to understand that autism is far more than its diagnostic symptoms and behaviors. That autism is really a whole person condition, and it's not necessarily disabling, but just like color blindness can be disabling, there are times when there are autism-related disabilities. And for those individuals, autistic individuals, who do have challenges with skills acquisition or challenges with emotional regulation or challenges with sensory issues, there are times when some form of therapeutic intervention may be appropriate. There are also some significant co-occurring mental health and physical health conditions that are part of the autistic person, and often their health care requires certain accommodations, what we call autism-informed types of care. There are two aspects from a child development perspective that it's important to address for autistic children. One is that there may be aspects of their developmental progress that causes immediate impact to their developmental opportunity, and then as a result of those immediate impacts, there may be long-term disruptions in their developmental trajectory. So what we want to be able to do is help children as early as possible with those developmental impacts, whether they be communication-related or behavior-related, in ways that are interfering with development. We don't want to turn somebody into something that they're not, but we want all children, autistic or not, to have the opportunity for an optimal developmental process. The current model of care does create some barriers to access and learning. And they tend to be the fact that most of the interventions that are offered today are really powered by one-to-one interventions. And part of this allows us to be able to say, are there ways that we can deploy certain types of technology using, again, empathy-based design to be able to leverage technology in a way that does help achieve these developmental issues?
Okay, so I want to say maybe a sentence about myself. I'm a BCBA in my profession. I specialize on young children on the autism spectrum, and I've been part of this model of care for a lot of my adult life. And when we're looking a bit at the numbers behind that model of care, so first of all, when we look at autism specifically, we're talking about 1 in 31 children, the latest CDC that came out. We're talking about an average wait in the US of 12 months just for a diagnosis. That means that for 12 months, these children are not accessing effective care to help their development development, as Dr. Steve talked here. And once they even do, the statistics say that 50% of families drop therapy before meaningful process. Think of that number. That's an outrageous number. We're not going to go in the details on why this is happening, but this is the stats. And what does that mean when we look at the weekly care burden for families? The recommended therapy time, look at the numbers today, is 25 hours of one-on-one support. That's tremendous amount that families need to take on them. What really happens in real life is we're taking to 5 hours average therapy that is received for many reasons according to the 25 hours there. And the cost, this is a weekly cost, some of it out of pocket, some of that is reimbursed, but this is still the weekly cost. So when you accumulate it over a lifetime, you can get the numbers. We're talking about millions per individual according to the level of support they need. Now let's look at the outcomes before that model. What are the outcomes there? Only 15 to 20% of adults with autism live independently. I know that independence varies. What does that mean, independence? But still, we're talking about the ability to live a full and independent life as much as possible to that individual, and 15 to 20% is that number. Under 20% hold full-time employment. That's Think about that number. That's under 20% as they grow up, for most of their adult life, are not being full-time employed in their society and being an effective part of their community. When we're talking about the parent side, we're talking about 20 to 40 hours of parents modeling care. That means that some of them leave their jobs. Some of them, this is all they do, just coordinate the care for their kids. And when we're talking about when they grow up and if they need 24/7 support, what does that mean for that parent? What does that mean for that family? And the other statistic, the other side of the statistic, is that under 70% of them, over 70% of them require support. So took all the statistics together, and the current model of care, this is what we're getting as these kids grow up. So we're here to say there could be other ways that we can enhance this model of care and shift it in a way that will enable these individuals to get different access and different outcomes. And like we said, it's also access, but that's not the only thing. Access is just the first part. We want different outcomes for these kids as they grow up. And we believe we can do that with technology.
So I just want to emphasize what Rinat just said, which is the model of care is failing. Really important to acknowledge that we've created systems of care, but when you look at the life course outcomes, there may be short-term gains in terms of response to treatment. I use that word very carefully. I'm not a fan of treating, but when we look at the life course outcomes, because autism remains at age 21 when services tend to be cut off, we're seeing that the model of care does not support people's life course outcomes. There's two ways of approaching technology in these kinds of situations. The one is technology-delivered care. It's purebred technology. And the other thing is technology-enabled care, when you still have the human factor involved, where we're talking about person-centered care with people involved in that care, but technology can then provide the support to extend therapeutic interactions outside of that one-to-one encounter. So when we're looking at technology-delivered models, it tends to be standalone, it tends to be easily scalable, but at the same time, there's a high rate of disengagement with purely technology-delivered care. With technology-enabled care, you've got the human factor involved, whether it's physicians, nurses, teachers, therapists, or others, including, by the way, caregivers can be involved in technology-enabled care. And there's a growing amount of evidence that caregiver-mediated care actually has very successful life course outcomes. It does have better clinical outcomes, but at the same time, it requires some additional resources. So the person part of this requires investment. But we also know that human-centered care does require investment, and we know that the investment actually pays off in terms of better long-term outcomes.
So I want us to look at a use case and really put it down to the ground and understand how this does affect children as they grow up, or individuals. I use the word, we're looking at all of our heroes of 5, and that's an example, but we're looking really across the lifespan. It could be very young children, it could be older individuals, but let's take an example here. 5-year-old Oliver here was recently diagnosed with autism, and he received support from both his therapist, that he has a therapist, he has a school team, which is a different team, and he also has parents at home helping him and supporting him with his daily living skills. individuals. Now, each of those groups, and I've been part of those groups, everybody really wants Oliver to succeed. Everybody wants him to get to the best outcomes they can, and everybody's working really hard for that to happen. But the current model of care is not allowing progress to be as fast as they could. So how can we change that trajectory for Oliver and for other individuals through technology and enabling it within the therapeutic settings?
Just one comment about that. One of the other challenges when you've got a therapist, a school team, and parents is often that the goals are set by individual teams, and those goals are not coordinated. Technology-enabled care allows that technology to touch all of the people involved, so there's some consistency in terms of a goal achievement across all the members of the team.
I think that when you look at what you just said, it's not just setting the goal, but it's actually unifying a language. Because if you look at each one of those teams, so when you look at parents, they speak one language. They're also the parents at home. They're not the child's therapists. There's the therapists who speak a different language that is based on their discipline or where they come from or who are the ones who are treating. A lot of times it's a crossover between different disciplines. So the same child has an OT, a BCBA, an SLP, and they also talk different languages between themselves unless they are very coordinated. And everybody doesn't always talk with the child-centered language, which the child understands. Because Oliver is 5, and he has all these therapists, the school-based, and he has the parents, and everybody's talking to him in a different language, trying to teach him something that is difficult for him to understand as it is. But when you look at tech-enabled technology and how that can assist that effort for everybody. So the first thing is there's one coordinated plan. Everybody is around the same goals for that specific child. It's not different across the different settings that Oliver is in. We're looking at shared visual language and cues for that specific child, because when everybody uses a unified language, that child could just learn better. It's not as baffling for him in the real world when everybody uses the same language. And we'll also say a point about data. I think that what we want to see is that everybody is using the same data informed in order to get informed decisions for that specific child. So once everybody is unified across this, and this is what tech can enable, because who here, I know when I used to work with my team, I used to send a lot of emails. Right? You're sending emails to the parents, you're sending emails to the team, sometimes you're sending emails to the parents and the team, and you include the school staff, and so on. But nobody's really talking the same language or sharing the same platforms or sharing the same goals. So what a tech-enabled platform really enables is to put everybody together around the child, which is the center and the center of our shared effort. So when we look at the benefits and take a closer look at the benefits of technology-enabled care, first of all, we talked about access 24/7, usually, because then the children can access. They do need that 24/7 support. A lot of them do need it as they grow up as well, and they can access it before diagnosis, after diagnosis, during diagnosis, or any life stage that they're in. They can still access care through technology. Engagement is an important part. We do know that a lot of times as the kids grow up, the engagement level with the therapy team is not unified across the different settings, and also is not also accessible and available. So here, the engagement level with technology, a lot of times for our neurodiverse individuals, is enabling them to get better care in a language they understand. Outcomes. I think this is what we're here for. We want better outcomes for our students and our learners, each one for their own potential, but we do want better outcomes for them, and technology can enable that. I used to work in kindergartens, I remember, and by the time they were 6 or 7, somebody told me when I just was a young BCBA, and they told me, it said, he's going to leave the kindergarten, he's going to school, and you're never going to see him again. So make sure that when he's 7, he knows how to go to the bathroom, that he knows how to eat his own food, and he can tell the difference between the boys' bathroom and the girls' bathroom in a public space. Now, if somebody didn't tell me those wouldn't be the outcomes I would do, but that sort of language across the unified care really is what we need to drive in order for younger kids and more adult kids to be able. We want those outcomes for them. So personalization, I think something that I struggled with always with the care is how do we personalize to each learner? I think that's a struggle for everybody. How do we get there to that learner, his specific needs? Technology can help bridge that gap quite easily. Coordination between the team, we talked about that for a minute. Efficiency, it's an efficient time-saving tool because we can use technology very easily without the need to start writing tens of dozens of email. I will say one word about equity. This is not the focus of the call, but because of the talk, I'm sorry, but because we can enable access to everybody, we can actually create an environment where it's more equal for everybody to get access to care. We're going to zoom in a bit about two things. One is engagement and outcomes. One of the things that we wanted to reach with technology is the level of engagement that the children are in. They love technology. We all do. Is everybody engaging quite happily with their phones and laptops and so on? So I think the same is for the kids, and we need to understand that there are also the levels of engagement are much higher when they engage with technology. Certainly, autistic individuals are sometimes the human-based connection is more difficult for them. So we need to understand that that also enhanced engagement can lead to enhanced outcomes as the kids grow up. When we look, first of all, one of the things that were important to me is a bit of shift of power between the therapist to patient-centered care. We want them involved in their own care. A lot of time what happens in human-centered models is that we are the one directing the therapy for the child. We are teaching, we are telling them what they need to do, how they need to do it, and so on. And what technology enables a lot of times for the students to be able to monitor themselves and be very involved in their own care, which is a very interesting shift of power, and that gives them a voice. Think about that, because when they are the one interacting with their own technology, it gives them the ability to control sometimes a very hectic real-life environment in a very safe space that is enabling them to bring out what they want in their life.
We've heard a lot, well, let me do this. We've heard a lot about technology lately with regard to AI chatbots in mental health and some of the challenges that people have had in terms of AI in particular, or the idea that this is somehow an analogous to increased screen time. I think the 2 points that Rinat just made about the importance of the hybrid model, increasing the level of acceptance, commitment, and engagement with the platform becomes really critically important because you're not just there for yourself. You're there because you're being surrounded by people who you actually know are in support of you having agency over your own growth. People don't become dependent, and this is again one of the other value propositions for technology-enabled care versus what's happening with AI and mental health right now, because AI and mental health is direct technology-based care without the human factor involved. As I just said, not all technology is created equal, and we do believe that, again, what we call the hybrid model or technology-enabled model really does bring the human factor into care by supporting the emotional relationship between the network around a particular person who needs care. And, you know, we've mentioned children today, but in fact, this model is equally valuable in adults who have similar challenges, whether it be because of intellectual developmental disabilities or a stroke, or the talk just now really resonated because there's a whole other marketplace for the intervention to come after, and that's really where we're
So I want to say maybe just a word about WIDE and what we do here. What WIDE is, we believe that digital practice can change children's lives. WIDE is a platform where children see the I use again the word children, but they're actually learners across the age span that see themselves overcome challenges they are facing in real life, and they are engaging with themselves, doing something that is really difficult for them in the real environment. And by watching themselves do it, they're able to actually overcome also challenging behaviors, but also acquire life skills that way that otherwise they won't have access to or be able to acquire in other settings. And this is part of the shift. And I want to say something about what Dr. Steve said about the technology and who can we trust in technology. I think one of the things that guided us when we did WIDE is not screen time as screen time, but how much minimal screen time does that child need in order to be as effective in real life as possible. I think that's really the difference when you come and look at technologies, and there's a lot of technologies out there, and I think you also talked about that. what I think that the essence of it, and I heard it from your talk and I see it in Wide as well, what was it created for? And I think once you ask that question, why did these creators, why did these founders go out and get that technology? Once you understand that what they wanted it to do is support the individuals, you understand that they didn't want to keep them engaged. I have a 14-year-old who plays FIFA. Anybody here know FIFA, the game? Yeah? So it's not meant to trap them hours in a FIFA game. That's really the difference, because it's not meant for that sort of engagement. It's meant to support them in real life. And once you ask that question, how does this technology support in real life, you start seeing what tech enables your support, what enables your therapy.
Well, because it's goal-directed based upon the goal of the person, and they are using the tech to achieve the goal. Once the goal is achieved, the tech goes away, or it moves on to another goal that's been set for that person.
Exactly. So I think we're going to leave a bit of time for questions. We're going to end with the last slide. No, we have one more. There we go. Someone leaping. So we invite you all to jump in and take the leap towards smarter, better care with technology. And if anybody else has questions, we also have a booth there, so you're welcome to join us there and ask anything else you'd like. But if someone wants to ask now, we'd love to hear questions.
Also, I don't know whether the slides will be available through Empathy Tech, but if anybody would like ours, just come to the booth and let us know. We'll be happy to make sure you get copies of the slides.